Maya Chen sat in the back corner of Professor Harrison's xenobiology class. Her dark eyes focused on the holographic display showing various alien species. While other students whispered excitedly about the upcoming Galactic Academy exchange program, she remained silent, taking careful notes in her worn leather journal. The other students barely noticed her existence, which was exactly how she preferred it. At 19, Maya had already seen more conflict than most seasoned diplomats. Her small frame and soft-spoken demeanor made her appear fragile, almost invisible among her more outgoing classmates. She wore simple clothes, kept her long black hair in a practical ponytail, and never participated in class discussions unless directly asked. To everyone around her, she was just another quiet student trying to get through her xenopolitics degree. What they didn't know was that Maya Chen had spent the last 5 years preventing 3 separate galactic wars. The first incident happened when she was 14. The Zephyrian Empire had been mobilizing their fleet against the Terran colonies over a mining dispute on Kepler 442b. While Earth's diplomats scrambled to find a solution, young Maya had quietly slipped aboard a Zephyrian transport ship during a supply run to Luna Station. Using nothing but her understanding of Zephyrian honor codes and a carefully crafted poem written in their ancient dialect, she had convinced their war admiral that the dispute was beneath their noble status. The Zephyrians withdrew their fleet within a week, claiming they had more worthy opponents to face. Earth's government never learned how the crisis was resolved, attributing it to their diplomatic efforts. The second war she prevented involved the crystalline Vex Collective, who had discovered that human mining operations were accidentally destroying their sacred crystal gardens on 3 different worlds. The Vex had begun preparing their planet crackers, massive ships capable of splitting worlds in half. Maya had spent 6 months learning their harmonic language, which consisted entirely of musical tones and frequencies. She infiltrated one of their hive cities and performed a song of apology so perfect that it moved their queen to tears of liquid crystal. The Vex not only called off their attack, but began sharing their crystal-growing technology with human colonies, leading to a revolution in sustainable energy. Again, no one knew Maya was responsible. The third conflict was the most recent, just 2 years ago. The Mechanical Nexus Federation had decided that organic life was a virus that needed to be eliminated from their sector of the galaxy. Their logic was flawless, their determination absolute, and their army of self-replicating war machines was already being deployed. Maya had done something unprecedented. She challenged their central processing unit to a game. Not chess, not war simulations, but the ancient human game of Go. She played for 72 hours straight, demonstrating strategic thinking so complex and beautiful that the Nexus AI began to see organic minds not as viruses, but as art forms worth preserving. The Nexus became humanity's protectors instead of destroyers, though they never revealed why they changed their programming. Now, sitting in this classroom surrounded by students who dreamed of making first contact or negotiating trade deals, Maya listened to Professor Harrison explain the delicate balance of galactic politics. He spoke about the 3 major powers, the militaristic Zephyrian Empire, the mystical Vex Collective, and the logical Nexus Federation. He mentioned how remarkable it was that none of these species had come into direct conflict with humanity, calling it unprecedented diplomatic luck. Maya allowed herself a small smile as she continued taking notes. If only he knew that luck had nothing to do with it. Her peaceful moment was interrupted when her quantum communicator buzzed with an encrypted message. The device looked like an ordinary student tablet, but it connected her to a network of contacts across the galaxy. The message was brief but alarming. New species detected. Hostile intentions confirmed. They call themselves the Devourers. Estimated time to Earth, 6 months. Traditional diplomacy has failed. We need you. Maya's hand trembled slightly as she read the message. The Devourers were something she had hoped never to encounter. Unlike the previous threats she had faced, this species was driven not by honor, spirituality, or logic, but by an insatiable hunger. They consumed entire planets not for resources, but for the pure joy of destruction. They had already eaten 17 civilizations, leaving nothing but empty space behind. She glanced around the classroom, watching her fellow students laugh and chat about their weekend plans. They had no idea that in 6 months their world might cease to exist. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders like a familiar cloak. Once again, she would have to work alone in silence to save everyone she cared about. Professor Harrison was explaining the importance of understanding alien psychology when Maya quietly gathered her things and slipped out of the classroom. She had research to do and very little time to do it. The Devourers had never been stopped before, but then again, they had never encountered Maya Chen. As she walked across campus toward the restricted archives, Maya began formulating a plan. She would need to learn everything about the Devourers, their language, their culture, their weaknesses. Most importantly, she would need to find something they valued more than destruction itself. Every species had something they cherished, even if they didn't realize it. The other students continued with their normal lives, unaware that their quiet classmate was about to embark on her most dangerous mission yet. Maya disappeared into the shadows between buildings, already transforming from a forgettable student into the galaxy's most effective peacekeeper. The hunt for a solution had begun, and Maya Chen had never failed before. She didn't intend to start now. 3 weeks after receiving the warning about the Devourers, Maya had transformed her small dormitory room into a command center that would have impressed military strategists across the galaxy. Holographic displays showed star charts tracking the Devourers' movement through space, while translation matrices attempted to decode fragments of their communications. Her walls were covered with cultural analysis reports from the 17 civilizations that had fallen to their hunger. Maya barely slept anymore. Her roommate, Jessica, had long since stopped asking questions about the strange equipment that kept appearing in their room. Maya had explained it away as an advanced independent study project, which was technically true. She was studying how to save humanity, after all. The data about the Devourers was more disturbing than anything Maya had encountered before. They traveled in massive bioships that looked like cosmic jellyfish, each one capable of stripping a planet bare in mere days. Their society was built around consumption, but not in any way that made logical sense. They didn't eat for survival or pleasure. They ate to fill what appeared to be an endless spiritual emptiness. Every civilization that had tried to negotiate with them reported the same thing. The Devourers would listen politely, seem almost sad about their nature, and then continue their destruction anyway. They claimed they had no choice, that they were driven by something larger than themselves. Maya's breakthrough came when she discovered something the other analysts had missed. Hidden in the final transmissions from the Lemurian civilization was a single word spoken in the Devourers' native tongue, Kethmora. Every translation attempt had failed, but Maya recognized the linguistic structure. It was similar to an ancient Earth language she had studied while preparing for her encounter with the Zephyrians. Working through the night, Maya slowly pieced together the meaning. Kethmora wasn't just a word. It was a concept that didn't exist in any other known language. The closest translation would be, the hunger that fills the emptiness left by forgotten songs. The Devourers weren't just eating planets for destruction's sake. They were trying to consume something that had been lost. This revelation led Maya down a completely different research path. She began studying the earliest records of Devourer encounters, looking not at their destructive capabilities but at their behavior patterns. What she found changed everything. The Devourers always spent exactly 73 hours on each planet before beginning the consumption process. During this time, they would send small scouting parties to explore not military installations or resource deposits, but cultural sites, museums, theaters, concert halls, libraries, anywhere that a civilization stored its artistic achievements. Maya realized they weren't just monsters. They were mourners. Her next discovery came from an unlikely source, her xenomusicology elective. Professor Kim was discussing how different species used sound and rhythm to express emotions that had no equivalent in other cultures. She mentioned an extinct species called the Shapers, who had supposedly been able to create music so beautiful that it could alter the fundamental structure of reality itself. Maya's blood ran cold as she made the connection. The Shapers had disappeared approximately 3,000 years ago, at exactly the same time the first Devourer attacks were recorded. She spent the next week researching everything she could find about the Shapers, piecing together a tragedy that spanned millennia. The Shapers had been a peaceful species of beings who communicated entirely through music. Their songs could heal wounds, grow forests, and even create new forms of life. They were beloved throughout their sector of the galaxy, serving as mediators and artists for dozens of other civilizations. Then suddenly they vanished without explanation. Maya found the answer in a restricted file deep within the galactic archives. A cosmic catastrophe, a chain reaction of supernovas, had wiped out the Shapers' homeworld and 17 of their colony worlds in a single day. The few survivors scattered across the galaxy, but without their connection to their homeland's unique crystalline formations, they began to lose their musical abilities. Within a generation, the Shapers transformed into something else entirely. Cut off from the music that defined their very existence, they became hollow, hungry beings desperate to fill the silence that had consumed their souls. They began eating other civilizations' artistic achievements, hoping to somehow recapture what they had lost. When that failed, they started consuming entire worlds, driven mad by grief and emptiness. The Devourers weren't conquerors or predators. They were the tortured remnants of the galaxy's greatest artists, driven to destroy because they could no longer create. Maya sat in her dorm room, staring at the evidence she had assembled. For the first time in her career as a secret peacekeeper, she felt overwhelmed. How do you negotiate with a species driven not by logic, honor, or even survival, but by inconsolable grief? How do you reason with beings who had been mourning for 3,000 years? Her quantum communicator buzzed with another update. The Devourers had consumed another world, bringing them one step closer to Earth. Time was running out and Maya still had no solution. Every other threat she had faced could be reasoned with, bargained with, or outsmarted. But how do you bargain with grief itself? That night, Maya made a decision that would have terrified anyone who knew her true identity. She was going to do something she had never done before. Make direct contact with the threat before it reached Earth. She was going to find the Devourers and try to heal a wound that had been festering for 3 millennia. As she began planning her most dangerous mission yet, Maya couldn't help but wonder if she was finally facing a problem that even she couldn't solve. But somewhere in the back of her mind, an idea was beginning to form. If the Devourers had lost their ability to create music, perhaps they just needed to be reminded of what they once were. Maya began researching human musical traditions, looking for something that might resonate with the broken hearts of a species that had forgotten how to sing. Maya's plan was audacious even by her standards. She was going to steal a military reconnaissance ship, travel into Devourer space, and somehow convince a species of cosmic mourners to stop their 3,000-year rampage of grief. The technical challenges alone would have deterred most people, but Maya had learned long ago that impossible was just another word for hasn't been done yet. The first obstacle was transportation. Maya needed a ship capable of traveling undetected through hostile space while carrying specialized equipment she was still designing. Fortunately, her previous interventions had created unexpected allies throughout the galaxy. The Nexus Federation owed her their freedom from logic-locked destruction, and their gratitude came in the form of advanced cloaking technology. Maya sent a carefully coded message to Central Processing Unit Designation Harmony 7, the AI she had played Go with 2 years earlier. Within hours, she received coordinates to a dead-drop location on Europa. No questions asked, no official records created. The package contained a personal cloaking device that could hide not just a ship, but the quantum signatures of its occupant. The Zephyrian Empire contributed next, though they still didn't know they were helping Maya specifically. She used her knowledge of their honor codes to request sanctuary as a warrior seeking to prevent dishonor to the Empire. War Admiral Kethvar, the same Zephyrian she had convinced to withdraw from Earth 5 years earlier, provided her with access to their fastest scout ship. To him, she was simply a young human diplomat with impressive credentials and an unusual understanding of Zephyrian culture. The Vex Collective's contribution was the most complex. Maya needed something that had never been created before. A universal harmonic translator capable of converting human music into the lost sonic frequencies of the Shaper species. This required not just technology, but artistry. Maya spent 3 days in the crystal gardens of Vex Prime, working with their master harmonist to create a device that could bridge the gap between human emotional expression and Shaper reality-shaping frequencies. The Vex Queen herself oversaw the project, her crystalline form resonating with curiosity as Maya explained her theory. "You seek to heal what was broken long before we achieved consciousness," the Queen observed. her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. This is ambitious beyond the scope of logic. Sometimes logic isn't enough, Maya replied, carefully adjusting the harmonic resonators. Sometimes you need to sing to the parts of the universe that reason can't reach. While her alien allies provided the technology, Maya worked on the most challenging aspect of her plan, the music itself. She couldn't simply play human songs and hope for the best. She needed to understand what the Shapers had lost and find a way to express it through human creativity. Maya spent countless hours in Earth's musical archives, studying everything from Beethoven's symphonies to traditional folk songs from isolated mountain villages. She analyzed the mathematical structures underlying different musical traditions, looking for patterns that might resonate with Shaper psychology. But intellectual analysis only took her so far. She needed to feel the music, not just understand it. The breakthrough came during a late-night study session when Maya stumbled upon a recording made by her own grandmother. It was a simple lullaby sung in Mandarin that her grandmother had learned from her mother during the difficult years of the early 21st century. The melody was haunting, filled with longing for a home that no longer existed and hope for a future that might never come. As Maya listened to her grandmother's voice, she understood something profound about the nature of loss and healing. The Shapers hadn't just lost their ability to create music, they had lost their connection to the concept of home itself. Their homeworld wasn't just a place. It was the source of their creative power, their identity, their very souls. But humans understood that kind of loss too. Throughout history, humanity had been displaced, scattered, and forced to rebuild their sense of home in new places. Every immigrant song, every spiritual about crossing over Jordan, every ballad about leaving one's birthplace contained the same themes that the Shapers were struggling with. Maya began composing a musical sequence that would tell the story of loss and rediscovery from a human perspective. She wove together melodies from displaced cultures across Earth, Celtic tunes carried by emigrants to new worlds, African rhythms preserved through centuries of forced migration, Native American chants that connected people to land even when that land was taken away. The composition wasn't just music, it was a map showing how beings could find their way home even when home no longer existed in physical space. It was proof that identity and creative power could survive the destruction of their original sources. 3 months after beginning her preparation, Maya was ready. Her stolen Zephyrian scout ship, cloaked by Nexus technology and equipped with Vex harmonic translators, departed from a hidden asteroid base near Jupiter. To anyone monitoring space traffic, the ship simply didn't exist. Maya's destination was the edge of Devourer space, where she had detected a scout fleet probing the outer systems for their next target. Her plan was to intercept them before they could report back to the main hive, giving her a chance to communicate with a smaller group rather than facing the entire species at once. As her ship traveled through the void between stars, Maya practiced her composition one final time. She had modified her grandmother's lullaby into something that incorporated Shaper harmonic principles, while maintaining its essentially human emotional core. If she was right, the music would do more than just communicate with the Devourers. It would remind them of what they used to be. If she was wrong, she would likely become the first human to be consumed by beings who had forgotten the difference between creation and destruction. Maya set her ship's course for the outer rim of the solar system, where long-range sensors had detected the approaching Devourer scouts. In 72 hours, she would either begin healing a wound that had poisoned the galaxy for 3 millennia, or she would die trying. Either way, she wouldn't let Earth fall without a fight. And for the first time in her career as a secret peacekeeper, Maya wasn't entirely sure which outcome was more likely. The encounter happened at the edge of the Kuiper Belt, in the cold darkness between worlds where forgotten comets drifted in eternal silence. Maya's ship had been waiting for 6 hours when the Devourer scout vessel appeared, materializing out of hyperspace like a nightmare given form. The bioship was even more disturbing in person than in the recordings, a writhing mass of organic tissue and metal, pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to spell out words in languages that no longer existed. Maya's hands trembled as she initiated contact protocols, sending the universal peaceful approach signal that had been used for diplomatic first contact for over 2 centuries. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Devourer ship responded with a signal of its own, a complex harmonic sequence that made Maya's ship vibrate in sympathetic resonance. They were trying to sing to her. The melody was heartbreaking in its beauty and terrible in its emptiness. Maya could hear the remnants of what the Shapers had once been, the echoes of cosmic harmonies that had once created life itself. But the song was broken, fragmentary, like trying to remember a dream that had been interrupted by a nightmare. Through her universal translator, a voice spoke to her in perfect emotionless English. Small being in metal shell, you approach the hungry ones with peaceful intent. This is unusual. Most flee or attack. We sense no military capability in your vessel. Why do you come to us? Maya activated her ship's communication array, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was attempting. I come because I know what you've lost, and I think I know how to help you find it again. The silence that followed lasted long enough for Maya to wonder if she had miscalculated. Then the Devourer ship began moving closer, its bioluminescent patterns shifting to display what looked like curiosity. You speak of things that cannot be returned. The deep song is broken. The harmony of making is silence. We are Kethmora, the hunger that seeks what cannot be found. I know about the Shapers, Maya said quietly. I know about the catastrophe that destroyed your homeworld. I know about the music you've lost. But I also know something you may have forgotten. The power to create music doesn't come from a place. It comes from the heart that remembers why the music matters. The response came faster this time, and for the first time, Maya heard something other than emptiness in the Devourer's voice. There was surprise, and beneath that, the faintest whisper of hope. You know the old names. How is this possible? The records of the deep song were lost with the 17 worlds. Maya took a deep breath and made her gamble. Because music isn't just sound and frequency. It's memory given form. Every species that creates music is preserving something sacred. And sometimes when one people loses their songs, another people can help them remember how to sing. She activated the harmonic translator, and her grandmother's lullaby began to flow through space, transformed by Vex technology into frequencies that Shaper biology could recognize, but it was still fundamentally human, filled with the longing of a grandmother who had left her homeland, the hope of a mother singing to her child in a new world, the determination of a people who refused to let distance destroy their connections to what they loved. The effect on the Devourer ship was immediate and dramatic. Its bioluminescent pattern shifted from the dull, hungry glow Maya had seen in the recordings to something brighter, more complex. The ship's movement changed too, becoming more graceful, as if it was remembering how to dance instead of merely hunt. The voice that responded was different now, layered with harmonics that suggested multiple beings speaking in unison. How is this possible? The patterns are wrong for the deep song, but the meaning underneath. We remember this feeling. Loss transformed into hope. Separation bridged by connection. How do your people know the long sorrow song? Maya's heart was racing, but she kept her voice calm. Because humans know about losing home too. We've been scattered across the galaxy, forced to leave everything familiar behind. But we learned something important. Home isn't a place you can lose. It's a feeling you carry with you, a connection you maintain through the things you create and the love you share. She modified the harmonic output, adding layers of complexity that incorporated musical traditions from across human culture, Celtic melodies that spoke of leaving Ireland behind, spirituals born from the pain of slavery but reaching toward freedom, folk songs that helped Chinese immigrants maintain their identity in foreign lands, indigenous chants that connected people to earth and sky regardless of geography. The Devourer ship began to glow brighter, its bioluminescent patterns now clearly recognizable as musical notation in the ancient Shaper script. Other voices joined the first, and Maya realized she wasn't just communicating with one being, but with the collective consciousness of hundreds of surviving Shapers who had forgotten they were anything more than hunger. Show us more, they said, and their voices now carried the faintest echo of the harmonies that had once been capable of shaping reality itself. Show us how your people remember home when home is gone. Maya spent the next hour sharing humanity's musical heritage, each song carefully translated through the harmonic matrix to resonate with Shaper consciousness. She played them blues that turned pain into art, classical compositions that found order in chaos, folk songs that preserved stories across generations, and lullabies that carried love across impossible distances. With each song, The Devourer's ship became more recognizably what it had once been. Not a biomechanical weapon, but a living vessel designed to carry music across the stars. Its hull began to resonate in harmony with Maya's transmissions, adding its own voice to the growing symphony. Finally, Maya played them the most important song of all, a new composition she had created specifically for this moment. It was her grandmother's lullaby transformed into something larger, a musical bridge between two species separated by biology and history, but connected by the universal experience of loss and the hope of rediscovery. The song told the story of the Shapers' tragedy, but it also told the story of their potential redemption. It acknowledged their grief while suggesting that creation was still possible, that the music they thought was lost forever could be rebuilt in new forms, with new voices, in partnership with others who understood the sacred nature of artistic expression. When the song ended, space itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the Devourer ship began to sing back, its voice now clearly recognizable as a harmony designed to complement Maya's melody. Other Shaper bioships began appearing from hyperspace, drawn by the first music their species had created in 3,000 years. "Small being," the collective voice said, now warm with an emotion Maya recognized as gratitude. "You have given us something we thought was lost forever. Not our old songs, but the memory of why we sang them. We remember now. We remember who we were before the hunger." Maya smiled, tears streaming down her face as she watched a dozen former world killers transform back into the artists they had always been meant to be. "Everyone deserves a chance to come home," she said softly, "even if home has to be built from scratch." The transformation wasn't immediate or complete. 3,000 years of grief and hunger couldn't be healed with a single musical conversation, no matter how profound. But as Maya watched the Shaper vessels around her begin to remember their original purpose, she realized that the hardest part of her mission was just beginning. The lead Shaper, who had begun to refer to themselves as Echo of the first song, explained the magnitude of the challenge ahead. "We are not the only ones who fell to the hunger. Across 17 sectors, our scattered kin continue the consuming path. Many have forgotten even the dream of music. Some have become so lost in Kethmora that they may not be able to return." Maya felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders again. She had solved the immediate crisis of the Scouts, but there were thousands of Devourer ships spread across the galaxy, each one consuming worlds in a desperate attempt to fill an unfillable void. "How many total?" 47 hive clusters," Echo replied, their bioluminescent patterns dimming with sorrow, each containing between 50 and 300 vessels. "Most have not heard the deep song in over a millennium. They may see us as corrupted, betrayers of the hunger that has become their only identity." The scope of the problem was staggering, but Maya had faced impossible odds before. "We need a plan, something that can reach all of them at once." Over the next several days, Maya worked with the redeemed Shapers to develop a strategy unlike anything she had attempted before. The solution required understanding not just Shaper psychology, but the fundamental physics of how their species had once shaped reality through music. The key insight came from Echo's explanation of how the original deep song had worked. Shaper music wasn't just sound, it was a form of quantum communication that could influence the structure of space-time itself. Their songs could heal wounded planets, accelerate the growth of new stars, and even create stable wormholes for faster-than-light travel. But the same properties that made their music capable of creation also made it capable of destruction when corrupted by grief. The Devourers weren't just eating worlds. They were using broken fragments of the deep song to unmake reality in their vicinity, turning creation backward into entropy. Maya's plan was audacious. Create a new version of the deep song that could propagate across the entire galaxy simultaneously, reaching every lost Shaper regardless of their location. But this version would be different from the original. Instead of being purely Shaper in origin, it would incorporate the musical traditions of every species that had learned to transform pain into art. A universal deep song, Echo mused when Maya explained her idea. Music that speaks not just to Shaper consciousness but to the creative spirit that exists in all thinking beings. Theoretically possible, but the complexity would be enormous. Maya smiled grimly. Then it's a good thing I have some very talented friends. The next phase of Maya's plan required her to do something she had never done before. Reveal her true activities to her alien allies. Over the past 5 years, the Zephyrians, Vex, and Nexus had each helped her without knowing they were part of a larger pattern. Now she needed their conscious cooperation. Her first call was to War Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire. The proud warrior listened in stunned silence as Maya explained her true identity and mission. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment before responding. "You are the one who taught us that some battles are too small for true warriors. I wondered about your wisdom, young human. Now I understand you have been fighting the largest battle of all." The Vex Queen's reaction was more complex, her crystalline form resonating with harmonics that suggested both surprise and something approaching admiration. "You have been orchestrating galactic harmony while pretending to be a mere student. This explains much about your understanding of our harmonic principles. What do you need from us?" The Nexus Federation's response was characteristically logical. "Your deception was efficient and effective. We calculate a 97.3% probability that revealing your activities to us at this time serves a purpose essential to galactic stability. State your requirements." Each species contributed their unique capabilities to Maya's new plan. The Zephyrians provided raw power, massive transmitters capable of broadcasting across entire star systems. The Vex contributed their mastery of harmonic manipulation, helping to design the complex wave patterns needed to carry the universal deep song. The Nexus offered computational power, calculating the precise frequencies and timing needed to ensure the song would reach every corner of Devourer space simultaneously. But the most important contribution came from an unexpected source: Earth itself. Maya had realized that her plan required more than just the musical traditions she had already discovered. She needed the full spectrum of human creative expression, including the forms of art that weren't typically considered music, but still carried the same emotional resonance. She reached out to her contacts on Earth, carefully selected individuals who could help without asking too many questions. Within weeks, she had assembled recordings of everything from Tibetan throat singing to street musicians in São Paulo, from children's playground rhymes to the improvised work songs of deep space miners. But Maya also needed something more: the visual and emotional context that gave human music its power. She incorporated recordings of laughter, of crying, of crowds cheering and lovers whispering. She included the sounds of rain on leaves, of wind through canyons, of waves crashing against shores, the natural music that had inspired human composers for millennia. The final component was the most personal. Maya recorded herself telling the story of her grandmother's lullaby, explaining how a simple song had carried one family's love across an ocean and through generations. This story became the emotional center of the universal deep song, the narrative thread that would help lost shapers understand that healing was possible. As the various components came together, Maya realized she was creating something unprecedented, a musical message that transcended species boundaries, communicating not just through sound but through the shared experience of finding hope in the face of loss. The technical challenges were immense. Coordinating broadcasts across dozens of star systems, ensuring that the quantum resonance patterns would remain stable over galactic distances, and timing everything to reach the Devourer fleet simultaneously required computational power that stretched even Nexus capabilities to their limits. But perhaps the greatest challenge was personal. To make the universal deep song work, Maya would have to do something she had never done before: step out of the shadows and reveal herself to the galaxy. The song could only achieve its full effect if it carried the authentic voice of its creator. Maya would have to broadcast not just as an anonymous diplomat or hidden peacekeeper, but as herself, a human woman who had spent her life preventing wars through understanding and compassion. As the final preparations were completed and the moment for the galactic broadcast approached, Maya sat in her ship surrounded by the most advanced coalition fleet ever assembled: Zephyrian warships, Vex crystal gardens, Nexus processing nodes, and redeemed Shaper biovessels, all working together toward a common goal. For the first time in her career, Maya Chen wasn't working alone. And as terrifying as that was, it also felt like coming home. The moment of the galactic broadcast arrived with little fanfare. Maya sat in the command center of her ship, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of every major fleet in known space. The Zephyrian transmitters were powered and ready. The Vex harmonic amplifiers hummed with crystalline resonance, The Nexus processing cores had calculated and recalculated the quantum frequencies until they achieved perfect theoretical synchronization. But despite all the advanced technology surrounding her, the success of Maya's plan ultimately depended on something much simpler: her ability to speak from the heart to beings who had forgotten what it meant to have. 1. All stations report ready, came the voice of war.
Admiral Kethvar from the Zephyrian flagship.
The warrior's path to peace awaits your command. Maya took a deep breath, her finger hovering over the activation control. Around her, the universe held its breath. On 47 worlds, Devourer fleets continued their ancient pattern of consumption, unaware that everything was about to change. On Earth, her classmates were probably sitting in Professor Harrison's xenobiology class, still believing their quiet classmate was just another student who would rather read than participate. Maya Chen, she said aloud, speaking her real name into the Galactic Communication Network for the first time. Initiate Universal Deep Song Protocol. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across 17 star systems, the most powerful transmitters ever constructed began broadcasting a musical message that transcended the normal boundaries of space and time. The Vex harmonic amplifiers caught the signal and transformed it into frequencies that could resonate with Shaper consciousness. The Nexus processors ensured that every note, every nuance reached its destination with perfect clarity. But the real magic began when the redeemed Shapers added their voices to the song, echo of the first. Song and their companions had spent weeks learning to harmonize with human musical traditions, finding ways to blend their reality-shaping capabilities with Maya's emotional compositions. As the universal deep song spread across the galaxy, it carried within it something that no previous attempt at communication had possessed: proof that healing was possible. The first responses came from the nearest Devourer fleets, bioships that had been preparing to consume mining colonies in the Centauri system. Maya watched through long-range sensors as the familiar pattern of approaching destruction suddenly changed. The ships stopped their advance, their bioluminescent patterns shifting from hungry red to confused amber. Then, one by one, they began to glow with the soft blue-green of remembrance. Contact established with Hive Cluster 7, reported the Nexus coordinator. Biosignatures indicate cessation of consumption protocols. They are attempting to harmonize with the broadcast. Similar reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. Not every contact was successful. Some Devourer fleets had fallen so far into hunger that they could no longer recognize the possibility of redemption. But for every fleet that remained lost, 2 others began the slow process of remembering what they had once been. The most dramatic transformation occurred in the Vega system, where a massive Devourer hive had been in the process of consuming an entire world. Long-range cameras captured the moment when 300 bioships suddenly stopped their feeding and began to sing together, their combined voices creating harmonic resonances that actually began healing the damage they had inflicted on the planet below. But it was the personal messages that moved Maya to tears. As the universal deep song continued to propagate, individual Shapers began responding with their own musical communications. Each one was unique, expressing 3,000 years of accumulated grief, confusion, and slowly dawning hope. They told stories of worlds they had consumed while trying to fill the emptiness inside themselves. They spoke of the loneliness of being the last remnants of a species that had once brought joy to the galaxy. And they thanked Maya for reminding them that they were more than their hunger. The Shaper, who called themselves Memory of Silent Waters, sent a particularly poignant message. Small singer of the bridge song, you have shown us that home was never a place that could be destroyed. It was always the connections we carry, the love we preserve, the beauty we create together. We had forgotten that grief could become gratitude. Not every response was positive. Several Devourer fleets rejected the universal deep song entirely, their communications filled with anger and accusations of betrayal. They called the redeemed Shapers corrupted and weak, claiming that the hunger was the only honest response to their cosmic loss. Maya had expected this resistance, but it still hurt to hear beings choose despair over hope. However, she had learned from her previous diplomatic successes that not every conflict could be resolved through understanding alone. Sometimes the best you could do was offer an alternative and let people choose their own path. The breakthrough came when one of the resistant fleets, a group that called themselves the Final Echo, agreed to a direct communication with Maya. Their leader, a being who identified as last note of the ending song, spoke with a voice that carried the accumulated bitterness of millennia. Bridge singer, last note said, "You offer us the illusion of redemption, but you cannot understand the depth of our loss. You speak of transformation and healing, but you have never felt the silence that comes when the universe itself forgets how to sing. How can your small songs replace the deep song that shaped reality itself?" Maya had been preparing for this question since the beginning of her mission. "You're right," she said simply. "I can't replace what you've lost. No one can. The deep song that your ancestors created was unique and beautiful, and its loss is a tragedy that will echo through the galaxy forever." "Then why do you persist in this futile effort?" Last Note demanded. "Because replacement isn't the only form of healing," Maya replied. "Your ancestors didn't create the deep song to be the only music in the universe. They created it because they understood that existence itself is a collaborative artwork, and every species that learns to transform pain into beauty adds something essential to the cosmic symphony." She paused, letting the harmonics of her grandmother's lullaby underlie her words. "The deep song isn't gone, it's evolved. Every time someone creates something beautiful in response to loss, they're adding a new verse to the song your ancestors began. The universal deep song isn't meant to replace what you've lost. It's meant to help you hear how the music has continued, and to invite you to add your voice to what it's becoming." The silence that followed was the longest of Maya's career. Then slowly, almost hesitantly, Last Note began to sing. Their voice was broken, uncertain, but it carried within it the faintest echo of the creative power that had once moved stars. Other voices joined them, and Maya realized she was hearing something unprecedented, the birth of a new form of shaper music, one that acknowledged loss while embracing the possibility of creating something different, but equally beautiful. As the galactic broadcast continued, Maya watched the transformation spread across known space. It wasn't complete, it might never be complete, but for the first time in 3,000 years the Shapers were creating instead of destroying. They were choosing hope over hunger, and somewhere in the background of it all Maya could hear her grandmother's lullaby, transformed by alien voices into something that belonged to the entire galaxy. 6 months after the universal deep song had echoed across the galaxy, Maya Chen walked into Professor Harrison's xenobiology class for the first time since her secret mission began. The other students barely looked up as she took her usual seat in the back corner, their attention focused on the holographic display showing the latest updates from the Galactic Council. "As you can see," Professor Harrison was saying, gesturing to images of redeemed Shaper bioships working alongside human terraforming crews, "the transformation of the former Devourer fleets has created unprecedented opportunities for interspecies cooperation. The Shaper's ability to accelerate planetary healing through harmonic resonance has revolutionized our approach to ecological restoration." Maya smiled quietly as she opened her notebook. The official story was that the Shapers had undergone a spontaneous cultural awakening, choosing to abandon their destructive path in favor of helping repair the damage they had caused. No government records mentioned Maya's involvement, and she preferred it that way. The work was what mattered, not the recognition. Her quantum communicator buzzed with a message from Echo of the first song. "Bridge singer, the healing of Kepler 438b proceeds ahead of schedule. The songs you taught us have helped the damaged ecosystems remember their original harmonies. The humans who live there send their gratitude, though they do not know to whom." Maya typed back quickly. "That's how it should be. Take care of yourself, Echo. Remember that healing is a process, not a destination." The past 6 months had been the busiest of Maya's life, even more challenging than her original diplomatic interventions. Helping 47 Shaper fleets transition from destroyer to healer required not just musical communication, but practical coordination. There were logistics to manage, resources to allocate, and the delicate task of helping former enemies learn to trust each other. The work had required Maya to step partially out of the shadows. She couldn't coordinate a galaxy-wide rehabilitation effort while maintaining complete anonymity, so she had created a new identity, Maya Chen, Special Cultural Liaison to the Transformed Species Integration Project. To the bureaucrats and politicians who needed to sign the paperwork, she was just another mid-level diplomat with an unusual talent for interspecies communication. Only her core allies, War Admiral Kethvar, the Vex Queen, and Central Processing Unit Harmony 7 knew the full truth about her previous activities. And even they didn't know about her other successes. Maya intended to keep her earlier interventions secret forever. The transformation hadn't been complete or perfect. 7 Devourer fleets had rejected the Universal Deep Song entirely, choosing to continue their destructive path rather than embrace the possibility of redemption. They had retreated to the galactic rim, where they continued to consume uninhabited worlds while the galaxy tried to decide how to respond to beings who chose destruction over healing. Maya had proposed a controversial solution: leave them alone, but contain them. The unredeemed Devourers weren't actively seeking to harm inhabited worlds anymore. They were simply unable to imagine any existence other than consumption. Creating a quarantine zone in uninhabited space would allow them to continue their tragic existence without threatening anyone else, while keeping the door open for future reconciliation attempts. It wasn't a perfect solution, but Maya had learned that sometimes the best you could do was minimize harm while hoping for eventual healing. The greater challenge was helping the redeemed Shapers integrate with galactic civilization. 3,000 years of grief and isolation couldn't be overcome overnight. Many of the former Devourers struggled with feelings of guilt and shame over the civilizations they had destroyed. Others found it difficult to trust that their new relationships with other species would last. Maya had spent months traveling between Shaper communities, offering counseling that was part diplomacy, part therapy, and part musical collaboration. She helped them process their grief while learning to channel their reality-shaping abilities in constructive directions. The work was exhausting but deeply rewarding. Maya watched former world killers learn to sing lullabies to human children on colony worlds they were helping to heal. She saw Shaper bioships transform into mobile concert halls, traveling between systems to share music that could literally make flowers bloom and storms calm. Most importantly, she saw them learning to forgive themselves. Professor Harrison's lecture continued, touching on the broader implications of the Shaper transformation. This event has fundamentally changed our understanding of what's possible in interspecies relations. The fact that a species could undergo such a complete psychological and cultural transformation suggests that even our most basic assumptions about fixed alien psychology may be incorrect. Maya made careful notes, though her mind was partly focused on a more immediate concern. Her communicator showed 3 new messages, one from a Nexus research station requesting help with an AI that had developed creative ambitions, another from a Zephyrian colony world where 2 warrior clans were on the verge of an honor conflict that could destabilize their entire system, and a third from an unknown source in the Andromeda galaxy. The third message made Maya's heart skip a beat. Humans had barely established contact with the Andromeda galaxy, and the few communications that had come through suggested a political situation so complex that most diplomats refused to even attempt analysis. But someone in Andromeda had heard about Maya's work with the Shapers. The message was brief but unmistakable. Bridge singer who heals the broken songs, we have need of your wisdom. Our worlds burn with conflicts that reason cannot cool. Will you help us learn to sing together? Maya closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had hoped for a brief respite, maybe even a chance to finish her degree before taking on another galactic crisis. But peace, it seemed, was always a work in progress. As class ended and students began filing out, Professor Harrison approached Maya's desk. Ms. Chen, I've been reviewing your recent research on interspecies cultural integration. Your insights are remarkably sophisticated for an undergraduate student. Have you considered graduate work in xenodiplomacy? Maya gathered her things, smiling at the irony. I've given it some thought, Professor, but I think I might be more interested in practical field work. That's admirable, Harrison replied. The galaxy needs more people willing to work directly with alien cultures, rather than just studying them from a distance. As Maya left the classroom, she reflected on how true those words were. The galaxy did need more people willing to build bridges between different species and cultures, but it also needed people willing to work in the shadows, preventing conflicts before they started, healing wounds before they became wars. Maya Chen would continue to be both kinds of peacekeeper. Whether the galaxy knew her name or not, her communicator buzzed again, this time with a message from her roommate Jessica, asking if she wanted to grab dinner and study for their upcoming exams. Maya smiled and typed back, "Sorry, rain check. I have some research to catch up on." It wasn't entirely a lie. She did need to research the political situation in Andromeda before deciding whether to accept their request for help. But first, she had 3 new crises to resolve a little closer to home. Maya Chen, the quiet girl who sat in the back of xenobiology class, walked across campus toward her dormitory. To anyone watching, she looked like just another student dealing with the ordinary challenges of university life. Nobody suspected that she was about to save another galaxy,